she said, "Now, how did you get here from India?" And he said, I have received a free passage from my friend Sumati Morji on the Scindia line. So she said, "Who paid for it?" And he said, "Well, free passage means there's no payment." So she was getting frustrated, and you could hear her. So she said, "Are you a freeloader?" Prabhupada never heard the word before, but he just said, "Yes." And we could hear her like fall down on her Formica kitchen floor. It sounded like she fainted, and the guy says, "Well, I don't like her questions anymore. I'm going to punch her out." So then he started asking questions about, like, what's that mark on your forehead and those kind of things, and then the program ended. But that was one program.
When I was making the Kartamashad murtis, casting them, and Govinda Dasi was painting them in 1969, I made 18 of them because that's how many temples we had at the time. And I said, "Well, Srila Prabhupada, my task is over. I've made as many deities as there are temples. I guess that's it." And Srila Prabhupada said, "No, you must continue." I couldn't continue because the mold went out, and I couldn't make another casting. But I said, "Really? Well, who will we sell them to?" I said, "We won't." I said, "If we sold them to karmis, they might put them out on their lawn as some sort of lawn furniture, lawn ornaments like flamingos or whatever." And Srila Prabhupada said, "If one karmi buys one murti and puts it on his lawn, our whole movement will be a glorious success." And I thought, wow, that's a lot different than the general gist of what we've been pursuing. The idea that any contact with Krishna is a good contact with Krishna. And it was from that point on that he encouraged cottage industries and was saying that cottage industry is the way the people should do, because you keep your family together in the house instead of going everywhere. And he was very much against that. He was always talking about the commuter trains. They are going so fast that way simply so that later they can go so fast the other direction. And that the train only enables people to live so far away that they never see their family. People are meant to live in the same house with their family and work there. Not everybody works together. He said the grandmother works, the son works, the child works, the wife works. They all make something, like the paintings in Puri or Rajasthan. It's a group effort. And it's all done by people that know how to do one part. And they make these products and they sell it, and they stay together as a family and spend the rest of their time God conscious.
He had told me, at one time I was in Vrindavan, Achyutananda came. I don't know if this is appropriate for this, but he had gone to Prabhupada, and I was there, and he said, "Gurudas should wear yellow robes." And we both looked at him, why? And Prabhupada said, Achyutananda said, because he is a householder, but he preaches like a sannyasi, and so he can wear yellow robes. And Prabhupada looked at him like, and I didn't care, and so that was shot down. So Achyutananda went on that, well, Gurudas is in Vrindavan, but it would be really good if he could come preaching around India. There's many places. And I had done that somewhat. And I said to Prabhupada after Achyutananda had gone, "I don't care if I ever leave Vrindavan. I'm very happy here. I'd like to preach too. What should I do?" He said, "Preach to devotees." He said, they need preaching. There's that same phenomena. Somebody joins, the courtship is over, and now you treat them like a married person, or whatever the analogy is. You grow complacent, that they're not unique and special. So I took that to heart, and I started preaching more. I think I was in charge of Vrindavan at the time, so I made it my business. It was great. Everybody appreciated it. I remembered in London when people came back from Sankirtan that Jamuna would make milk and I would tell them stories or read Krishna book. And everybody remembers that. They said it was like you're a father and she was mother. And Prabhupada again supported that by saying, men and women are in this very place. There's just on one floor difference, and there's no mixing. That is because this is a family. It is not artificial here. You are like father and Jamuna is like mother. He said it is not artificial. So it's that family type of thing. And so I was preaching to devotees, and when I was to become sannyas, I pointed out that I thought that preaching to devotees would be diminished because of that, not only because people treat you differently, and they did, but also a lot of married couples were coming for counseling. And that's my profession now. I'm a counselor, and even then, we were a good example. And so I was preaching to devotees. And so one of my first objections was that that would lessen that. And Prabhupada said, yes, that is so, but then you can preach more widely to the world, which is one of the ideas of becoming sannyasi.
So another interesting example of room conversation was later on in London in 1970. I'm sure there were many rooms in between and private conversations, but this one comes to mind. I had become, as a brahmachari, I was actually a householder, but living like a brahmachari, and living like that and chanting, you begin to wonder, am I going to get anywhere? I mean, certainly Prabhupada is proof positive that Krishna consciousness is not a fantasy, but a practical, normal condition of existence. I won't say human existence, but normal people are devotees. And there are more of them than there are us. We're weird troglodytes or something living somewhere else. But the real people are devotees, and they're happy, normal people that are perfectly fixed in the Atma-Rama state of pure, unalloyed love of God. That's normal life. But what about me? Will I ever get there? So I was chanting my japa in the London temple, which is very small and very tall on Bury Place. And I just finished redecorating the whole place and fixing it up. And I was pacing back and forth in front of Srila Prabhupada's room, and I knew he was inside chanting japa. And I became overwhelmed by the urge to knock on the door and ask Prabhupada, am I going to make some progress? So I knocked on the door and regretted it immediately afterwards. I sat there going in front of the door, worrying that Srila Prabhupada might answer or that he heard. And sure enough, he said, yes, come in. So I opened the door with trepidation, and I was even twice as scared as the first time I described. I came creeping into his room, and there he was, pacing up and down in this wonderful atmosphere that he'd created for himself with his japa bag in his hand. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He was a Leo, so he was just charging along, saying, Hare Krishna. And I came in saying, oh no, I'm here, I've got to ask the question. So I shut the door behind me and crouched in a corner like a mouse. And Prabhupada looked at me and said, yes. And I said, Srila Prabhupada, he said, I'm chanting, I'm following the program, etc. I said, I keep wondering, is it possible that I could ever become a pure devotee? I mean, I see that you're a pure devotee. Could I ever become a pure devotee? I mean, I'm doing these things, but could I become a pure devotee? And Srila Prabhupada looks at me appraisingly and marches back and forth the room a few times. And every time he turns, he mutters to himself, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And every time he turns around, he whirls around with his bead bag in the lead and says, Hare Krishna, and he charges across the room again. So he does that several times, and I'm getting more and more nervous because I'm beginning to wonder about the answer. And then he looks at me and says, why not? He says, you're in the process. I'm sitting there just melting like into a puddle of ghee. I'm so happy. He chants a few times, and he comes to a corner, he goes, Hare Krishna. He comes around the room, and he looks at me with a gimlet eye and says, but it may take some time.
We're walking, just myself and Prabhupada. I had begun to go to the India Office Library. It was a great library in London. And also the British Museum. I had to pass to the British Museum library. They had some old Gadyamat books, the British Museum, but India Office Library had everything. They had Bhakti Siddhanta. They had the poem that Prabhupada wrote to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati in 1934 or 36, Adori Dori, the Holy Day. I had found that in his handwriting and sent it to him, and he was so happy. So I was going through the library, and